There we go. Abracadabra. All right, could you flip the light switches, please, Carl? All of them on. There's another one to the right. Thank you. Good morning again, everybody. So I'll show you again, because you didn't. Down there, you'll see a little altar set up in front of the main altar. And on that little altar, we have some blueberries, a plate of food, a cup of water, some incense, a couple of artifacts, and a lantern with a candle in it. So this is for the Ghost Festival, aka Ullambana. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So the genesis of this was a conversation with Clay Roper, about 5 or 6 weeks ago. Probably said to me, Gareth, it's the Ghost Festival in a couple of weeks. Can we celebrate the Hungry Ghost Fest? Sure, that sounds like a really nice idea. So I started looking at it, and it's like, oh, Clay, it's August the 15th, not July the 15th. Oh, okay. So we're doing it on August 15th. Unfortunately, Clay isn't here today. He couldn't be here, but this is all Clay's stuff. So it's really important to Clay. So I'll talk through that as we get into it. But that's all courtesy of Clay, who came in Friday, set this up, and then put it all away. And he's right now on a retreat for the weekend. So what this got me thinking about is the importance of holy days, if you will, celebrations, festivals in Buddhism. When I am eating a meal on my own, the meal chant I use is a very long form of I think it's a Zen chant, but it begins thus. But it was born a couple of us to enlighten the Magada, taught at Varanasi and into Nirvana and Kushinagara. Now we lay at Buddha's own bowls, may we together with all beings realize the emptiness of the three wheels, giver, receiver, and gift. Buddha was born a couple of us to enlighten the Magada, taught at Varanasi, and then to Nirvana and Kushinagara. 4 events in his life. And Beth and I will be going to northern India and then on to Nepal in February next year. Actually, Dhammadeepa, who was best teacher, mentioned this to her, and she mentioned to me, it's like, oh, that's cool, let's do this. So we're going to northern India, and guess where we're going? These are the major pilgrimage sites, major events in Buddha's life. There is a holiday to celebrate each of these. Wesak is Buddha's birthday, which is in May. In December, traditionally December the 8th, is the night of Buddha's awakening. And that is generally celebrated as Bodhi Day, Awakening Day, in most of the Buddhist world. In Japan, it's Rohatsu. And there's a particular way that it's recognized in Japanese Zen, with a retreat and staying up overnight. In July, taught at Varanasi, Buddha's first teaching, Asla, Dharma Day. So the first teaching is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the turning of the wheel of the Dharma, which is where he first articulated the 4 Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, and the Middle Way. And then in February, so we're jumping around the calendar here, but they're roughly 1 1/4 if you reorder them. In February, there's Nirvana Day, also Parinirvana Day, which is the day of Buddha's death. So those are those 4 dates. There is another date, which is what we're really here for today. So I bring all those up because as I was thinking about this is important stuff. And it's also great community stuff. So going forward, it is my intention to start bringing festivals into our general practice. And so look to see these kind of things happen on a quarterly basis. And there is meaning in them, but there's also fun and there's connection within us and connection more broadly. So Hungry Ghost Festival. In October, there's a festival in the Theravadan tradition called Katina. Katina is the end of the rains retreat. Said it's the end of October. I swear when I was in California a couple of years ago with staying at Tanisra Biku's place, I swear it was November, but it could have been October. But this is the end of the rains retreat. Historically, traditionally, the followers of Buddha, the early Buddhists, they wandered around all over the place. And then when it chopped it down with rain, like it does here between July and November, right, in the hurricane season, basically, they would go on into seclusion, into retreat. So they'd all sequester themselves in a compound somewhere. And it would be a very intense practice period. And then at the end of that practice period, they came out and there was reconnection with the Sangha. And what I experienced with Tanisro's community on Katina, there were hundreds, maybe 1,000 people who were out of the Thai community in sort of south central California. And they all converged on this monastery. And they brought food. The monks went on their round that morning, on their begging round. And so the tradition is they all show up and they've got their bowls and they start walking down the line of people who are offering them rice. There must have been 500 people in line offering rice on Katina. So they're walking along with somebody with a food grade bucket behind them, and they're getting these little scoops of rice, and then they'd empty their bowls and get more. And that's because the rice is offered, and once it's offered rice, it's kind of sanctified holy rice. So then that rice is then made available to the community because it's been offered. So later it's this really blessed thing. So the monks are, in a sense, doing a service by receiving all of this rice. But there were hundreds of people offering this rice. And then after the meal, there was an assembly in the big hall, and people within the community, they offered and presented fabric out of which the monks would make robes. And the tradition is they have to stay up overnight. The monks work through the night to make the first of these robes. And Tanisro, he sat up, and we were sitting up with him, sitting in the little temple on the top of the hill. And they came in about 10 or 11 o'clock at night and presented him with this robe. Thank you, Amit. They came at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, presented him with this robe, and he looked at it, he looked at the stitches, and he nodded, and basically we're done. So they all went to bed. But that was done from like mid-afternoon till 10 or 11 at night. They did all this detailed stitching, and they made a robe. And the other thing that's happened on Katina, somebody in the community, as we did a few weeks ago here, somebody in the community said, may we receive the precepts? And they said it 3 times, and then he did this mass offering of the precepts to everybody in the room. So it's a community day. So it's the end of the rains retreat, but it's also a Sangha day. And another name for this is Sangha day. Right. That's in October, November. In the East Asian traditions, China, Korea, Japan, the rains retreat has been shifted forward, I guess because the tornado season doesn't line up with the hurricane season. The rain season is different. I don't know, but the retreat season, the rains retreat is typically like May through July, something like that. And so it ends earlier. So the end of the retreat happens now. And this is also when we celebrate the Hungry Ghosts Day and Ancestor Day. These all kind of come together on this one day. So it's a very special day. So there is a sutra that tells the story of the Ullambana Sutra, which is a story that kind of frames this day. I mean, you've got the rains retreat piece of it, which is really, really important. This is when the Sangha reconnects with them and with the practitioners. The Ullambana Sutra. Ullambana, I have read, is a transliteration of something along the lines of bringing suffering to an end. It's not obvious to me how that's a transliteration of Sanskrit, because suffering is dukkha, and I can't find dukkha anywhere in Ullambana as a transliteration. So it's not clear how that happens. Maybe somebody who has a background in Sanskrit can educate us a little later. But that's what it's supposed to mean, is the end of suffering. In Japan, it is called Obon. Well, let me do the sutra first. So the Ullambana Sutra. Magdalyayana, so this is not reading the sutra, but this is the story of the sutra. Magdalyayana, who is one of Buddha's senior disciples, reached a certain level of insight in his practice, and he was able to look back at and see the lives and situation of his parents. And he saw that his mother was in the realm of the hungry ghost, and he thought, this is really sad. I want to help her get out of the realm of hungry ghosts. But at the very least, I need to feed her. So he put down some food offerings for her, and made it clear in his deep samadhi that the food offerings were there. So she came forward to receive the offerings, and as she picked them up, they turned to burning coals in her hands, so she couldn't eat them. So Magdalena was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here? I want to help my mother. So he went to the Buddha and he asked the Buddha, and the Buddha said, well, you can't do this on your own. You need help. You need the Sangha. In fact, you need the Sanghas of the 10 directions to help. So what you need to do is you need to call on the help of the Sanghas of the 10 directions and have them make food offerings and have them support the food offerings. And so he did this. And of course, his mother is not capable of eating. She's a hungry ghost. She's in a different realm. She's not capable of eating the substance, but she's able to take the essence of the food. And with this support and this help of the Sangha, she was able to receive the food. And through receiving the food, she was able to receive a beneficial rebirth, and she ended up being reborn in one of the heavens. So that's the story. And it's a story, but there's some really beautiful points in there, and they're really beautiful points that are directly relevant and that I'd like to draw on. So the first one is Sangha. I talked about Sangha a minute ago, but the power of the Sangha is enormous. We all came together to sit with Sangha this morning. We're not sitting at home, we're sitting with Sangha. We're coming together because something happens when we come together, and we benefit from the warmth and energy of everybody else's practice. And in doing so, it allows us to expand our practice and offer that to everybody else. So there's this beautiful sharing across, and it's across space as well, because we've got people physically in this room and in other rooms, right? There's something really mystical that happens when we connect. And Sangha is a place where that energy of connection can happen and that energy of support can happen. So it's a very precious thing. Hungry ghosts. So in the Buddhist worldview, there are 6 realms. And one of those realms, one of the lower realms, is the realm of hungry ghosts. It's a realm where people are born with these big bodies and big appetites, long, narrow necks. So they've got this great appetite, but they can't get food down inside them. They can't feed themselves. And there's the literal way of reading this or hearing this, which is there are these 6 realms, and some of them are up there, and actually the heaven realms, there's 33 of them or something, and there's a whole bunch of different hell realms as well. So there's like this idea of these literally physically different realms. There's a more mystical way of reading it. So from a conversation with the Sufi folks I hang out with on a Friday night, one of the readings we were going through there, all of space is filled with life. Why would it not be? There are living beings all around. In every crack, there is no space that does not have a living being in. We can't see them. Doesn't mean they're not there. Very mystical. Why not? And the very mundane, practical one is, there are hungry ghosts walking around among us. I have met them. I have been one of them. With this insatiable appetite for food, for physical pleasures, for money, for career advancement, insatiable appetite, and no way to feed that. We're surrounded by hungry ghosts. So the Hungry Ghost Festival is a time to recognize whichever of those different levels of hungry ghosts we feel able to connect with, but to be able to connect with that and feel deep compassion for the profound dukkha that exists within them. Some of this, we watched Princess Kaguya yesterday, and her father, Princess Kaguya's father, was a life I used to live. He wanted to help his daughter, and he thought, she's a princess. I need to spend a bunch of money, get a big palace, paint her teeth black, pull out her eyebrows, have her marry a king or an emperor. She didn't want any of this stuff. She just wanted her dad. And she wanted to go out and play with her friends in the woods. But this is what he thought she wanted, and he wanted her to be happy. And there's this intense craving and suffering that he's creating for himself and for others by pursuing this. So this suffering, this dukkha, is not to be thought of as coming from the place of ill meaning. It's suffering that is often coming from the deepest good intentions, but from ignorance and just not seeing clearly. So this is Hungry Ghost Festival is a time to really connect with that suffering, and really feel profound compassion for that suffering. And that connects with Ancestor Day as well. I used to look across to the Chinese, Vietnamese, Japanese culture and ancestor worship with these hokey old spiritual beliefs, just a bunch of nonsense, right? But the more time I spend in my practice, the more not only do I open up to a different way of looking at them, but actually to directly connecting personally with real experience. First, it's not ancestor worship, it's ancestor reverence. And it's ancestor reverence. So in Buddhism, there are the 5 cardinal sins, if you will, are killing your mother, killing your father, killing an arhat, hurting the Buddha, or damaging the Sangha in some way, fracturing the Sangha. So 2 of those are mother and father. Right? This is important stuff. In another Buddhist tradition, there are the 4 benefactors. The 4 benefactors are our teachers, the emperor or empress, our parents, and then everybody else. Our parents again, right? This is really important. And Buddha constantly in the Pali Canon is telling us that we need to have gratitude towards our parents. Now, not all of us have great relationships with our parents, and pretty much all of us have a number of scars as a result of that. So I look back and I've got a bunch of different scars, right? I've got carrying a lot of baggage from my childhood, from the way my parents presented as parents to me, and the way they tried to care for me. But whether I like it or not, I'm carrying that with me in so many ways. There are some, I look at how I have perpetuated so much of what I experienced as a child on my children. A lot of it by trying to not let them do the things that I did that were dangerous and whatever. However it's landed, unless we are really skillful, really thoughtful, and really skillful, we just end up perpetuating so much of that family story, and it becomes just intergenerational stuff. It just goes on and on and on. So they're really in us. They're in us in a deeper ways. I mean, when my father passed away, I brought back several odds and ends. The pen I use is his fountain pen. Many of you have heard me talk about and quote Shakespeare. I found that I'm getting an awful lot out of going back and watching Shakespeare, which was, it's something that was very important to my dad. He spent a lot of time with Shakespeare, and so it's just, that's in me. How it's in me, I don't know. It's in me. And I grew up in the UK. My family, several generations of my family on both sides, for the most part, are from around London, going back 150 years probably. And most of and there's a lot of British history going way back beyond that. There's a history in here that, again, it's just part of who I am. It's just deeply ingrained. And again, I can't explain how, but I can tell you it's there. It's just there. And it's not all great. I mean, this country, one of this great country's most shameful histories, is the history of slavery. And the majority of the slave ships were chartered out of Liverpool, which is a seaport in the UK on the northwest side. So, Britain was a significant contributor to this grotesquerie. So not all of my history is beautiful history, but it is my history. And somehow it's in here, and somehow connecting with that I've found that more and more important. I was carrying some energy a while ago, and I won't tell you the full story because it would take a while and it'd be kind of weird. But I was carrying some energy a while ago, and somehow or other I realized I needed to connect with my mother's family, and it was my mother's matriarchal lineage. And there's a lady by the name of Florence Beckwood, who was my mother's maternal grandmother. And oh my goodness, somehow just working with this, I just connected with this incredible suffering. And it's somebody who's the last year of her life in particular was just awful. And it was a suffering, and then the consequence of that she left behind were awful. And it was a suffering that had not been seen. Those of you who are women here in particular will not be surprised to hear a woman not being seen. I mean, it just wasn't seen. And this was like the first time, 1918, this was the first time in over 100 years, I think, that she'd been seen. So it's there. So Ancestor Day is something that's deep within us. And again, however we choose to connect with this, there are the same different levels of connecting with this ancestor energy, but recognizing that it does carry forward, that it's here with us, and connecting with that. This is an opportunity to connect. So on the altar here, we have food, which is there in the same way that the food was offered by Magdalena to his mother. That's food that's being offered to the hungry ghosts and to the ancestors. And when we're done here today, that food needs to be eaten. Hopefully the spirits, if you will, are here with us today and they're imbibing of the essence. But then the physical food needs to be eaten too. So please, when we're done, help yourself, take some food and eat it. That's what it needs to happen. There is chocolate. There is chocolate. The one that's going to probably stay behind is it's a pretzel hamburger bun. And it's a dry hamburger bun, but that needs to go too. And there's also on the altar, there are things that I encourage you to regard as stand-ins for yourself. So there's incense and there's a candle. Candle is in a lamp, and that is an echo of something that's traditional for Obon, which is putting lamps on little floats. You light candles and you put them on little floats and you put them off in the water. And those are to connect with the spirits, the spirit realm. So that lamp is I'm going to show you the altar. So that lamp is there for that purpose as well. And then what we also have there, we've got 3 sticks of incense. 3 is incense is an offering, and 3 sticks is an important number. And those bowls are placed. 3 was. Well, it's used in all sorts of shamanic traditions as well. If you're going to offer to the spirits, you get 3 sticks of incense, and you turn them in 3 circles, and everything's in 3s. And you with the dharma and the sangha. 3 is sharp order. 3 is just a number. So also on here we have, I asked Clay for pictures of his parents, which was not thinking too deeply because Clay is blind and pictures of his parents aren't going to be particularly meaningful to him. But what he brought in for me was 2 items there. There's a wooden dolphin and a fabric book. And these are from his grandparents. And the fabric book is a book that his grandparents used to read him. So I encourage you to think of those items as stand-ins for yourself. So think of if you were to set an altar like this up yourself, what would you put on it for your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors? And imagine place artifacts there as stand-ins for your own. So just spend a minute to reflect on that, and then I'll bring this to a close and we'll have a conversation.